right, Home Inspector Ryan Bergami, give us some knowledge.
Hey there. Yeah, woohoo. Unfortunately I can't share my own screen today because I'm having internet or Wi-Fi problems at the office. But my name's Ryan Bergami. I've been doing home inspection since, believe it or not, my senior year in high school. This is my 12th year doing home inspections, and it's what we do day in and day out. When it comes to home inspections, if anybody wants to get on the phone real quick and let us know if you've been on a home inspection before, or if you've shadowed on a home inspection or seen a home inspection report, that would be awesome, so I can kind of have an understanding of who's seen what so far. So if everybody can jump on real quick and say you've been on one or you haven't been on one.
I'll be on one tomorrow.
Awesome. Everybody else?
I've been on a few.
Okay. All right. So everybody else, I'm going to be assuming that this is your first time learning about home inspection. So what we're going to do today, what I found works best for my meetings is just have a good conversation about home inspections in general, some major issues. We'll touch base on some radon, some mold, asbestos, things like that too. So if anybody has any questions with what we are going to talk about today, just ask. Don't be shy at all. I have no problem if you want to interrupt me. Okay. One of the first things that I like to show everybody is my website. Ryan's got that pulled up right now. On our website, we have a tab that's called Information. That gives you all of our literature on what we give to all of our clients and our agents. Now, one of the things that I always like to note before we get started into this is all of our brochures that we have on our website or we hand out to clients, they are all strictly educational. They do not sell us as a company to anybody. I believe it's more important for us to educate people rather than selling us saying, hey, pick me, we do home inspections. That's just not right. So Ryan, if you could go to that information tab, and if you click on the pre-purchase inspection brochure, I'm going to see if, there we go. And if you go down on the top left, you go to number 2. All right, so this is one of our inspection brochures. What I'm going to do for this is we're going to read through this and then we'll do a question answer kind of thing. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So finding an inspection company. We've reached that point to where a structural inspection is recommended. And our next step is to find an inspector to do the work. Who should we start with? Your agent should be able to provide you with reputable companies in the area that specialize in home or building inspections. Inspectors are licensed in various fields required by law. Now, you as real estate agents new into the industry, I want you to put yourself in that first-time home buyer set of shoes, the people that really aren't familiar at all with the real estate transaction. That's what this brochure is really designed to educate people on, okay? Insurance. Make sure that your chosen home inspector has general liability insurance, which is required by law. The general liability does not cover the inspection itself, but it covers what damage might occur on that home inspection. So let's give an example. So if a home inspector is on a job and he's walking in a house and he knocks over a lamp, okay, the lamp is covered by that. Secondary insurance, which is called errors and omissions. All of you with Berkshire do have errors and omissions insurance, I believe. Believe it or not, home inspectors in New York State are not required to have errors and omissions insurance. Now, when it comes to home inspectors, as a professional inspector, errors and omissions insurance is not a cheap insurance policy. It is not uncommon for that to run several $1,000s, and most companies want all of that upfront from home inspectors. They usually don't do installments for that. So it's not uncommon to have lots of inspectors in our area that don't have that extra coverage. Now, when it comes to speaking with home inspectors, you always want to ask if they have that type of insurance, okay? One of the reasons being is errors and omissions insurance is going to cover not only damages that could, be a result from the home inspector on a job, like knocking over a lamp or maybe breaking a window, but it's also going to cover things that were outside the realm of the home inspection that day. So if the home inspector said that something was okay and it clearly was not okay, or he forgot to report on something, the errors and omissions insurance is going to kick in to get those repairs done for your clients. I always like to use the example of hail damage on a roof. So if a home inspector takes a photo of a roof and says he can't see that roof, okay, he reported on it that he couldn't see it. But if a home inspector, takes a picture of the roof and doesn't say what he is seeing, or he says that it's in good condition, and we find out that there's hail damage several months down the road, well, that errors and omissions insurance is going to pick up that bill, and your client's most likely going to get a nice brand new roof on it. Okay, errors and omissions is something that I highly suggest when you get out into the industry and in your field, find out if your chosen home inspector has that errors and omissions policy. Okay, it's very important, and not everybody has that. Now, when it comes to home inspections, we can assume that it's going to take, let's say, on average, 2 to 2.5 hours for a really good, thorough inspection if our client is following around. Now, most clients, what they're going to do, they'll follow around, ask questions. As home inspectors, we can truly answer just about any question that any client has relating to the home. Okay. Some properties can definitely take longer than 2.5 hours. Some properties are much older. You've got to walk through things a little bit more methodically. I've been on home inspections that have taken me 4 hours before. It's all on the house and what the client has to ask is question-wise. What I would do, I would encourage all of your clients to give the home inspector a call, find out, what type of questions they should be writing down for the inspector while they're going through at the house, and encourage all of your clients to show up for the home inspection. Now, in New York State, it's very, very common for 99% of our clients to follow around and do the walk along with the home inspector. In other states outside of New York, that is not a common practice. So encourage all of your clients to go to the property. Now, if clients don't go to the property for the home inspection, that's going to leave them with tons of questions. We find in our office when somebody calls for an inspection and they don't show up to that inspection, they will call us up and ask every single question that they would have gotten answered if they just read their home inspection report, or if they actually showed up to do the walk along with the inspector. Okay. Now, not every inspection company is created equal when it comes to home inspections. You will find that as you go throughout our real estate careers, there are home inspectors that are very personable people. They're very easy to talk to, speak with. They're very easy to communicate major issues and non-issues. And there are inspectors that are absolutely terrible with that, just want to go through the inspection nice and quiet and get the report out as quickly as they can to you. Okay. You will find who your personality is going to fit best with as you go and experience different home inspectors. I actually encourage everybody to get as much experience you can with many different inspectors. Find out whose personality works best for you or your clients, and then you're going to be able to refer them in a really good direction that's going to help better suit everybody involved. Okay.
Hey, Ryan, can I add something? It's Gina.
Yes, definitely.
Along with, definitely making sure your clients know that it's highly, highly recommended to go and follow along and ask questions. We should be there too. Obviously, it's not the same as sitting in an office and making cold calls or, generating a lot of business, but we, tell our clients from the start that we're there with them from the beginning till the end. We're not just there so that they can get a deal and go on their way. So, find something to do, even if it's your listing, pop in, introduce yourself to the other side and just see any issues that might be pointed out, get a jump start on making some calls, getting some estimates. But definitely as a buyer's agent, definitely carve that time out of your day to make sure you're there with them. It's also easier for you. So any issues that do come up, there's no hearsay. There's nothing you can refute. If the inspector points it out to you, clear as day, because you might have questions. I ask a million questions on a home inspection because I'm going to need to be equipped to tell the attorneys what's going on. And if we need to negotiate anything between the realtors, you kind of need to really know what's going on and not just get it secondhand reading it from a report, because we don't do inspection stuff every day and it's not our ballpark. So we don't really know it. So it's good to be there firsthand and get as much information from the inspector as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one thing that I encourage every agent in this room, in this digital room that we're in, to do is network with other agents in your local Berkshire office. Find out, hey, do you have a home inspection coming up? I'd love to do a walk along with you, see what it's about. If you can do things like that, the more experience you're going to get on home inspectors, the more you're going to learn who the professional inspectors are, who the full-time inspectors are, the part-time guys, or the guys that are new in the industry. That's going to be really important for you moving forward, because you're going to know who you feel comfortable referring most. Okay.
Yes, I second that. I had it's Gina again. I don't know if we can see me because of the screen. But Dana Barbarossa, she may have been in some of the newer ones. Kelly, I think you know her. She's in our Niskuna office. She followed around with me on a home inspection with Ryan just a couple weeks ago in Cohoes. So definitely anyone that wants to go on some more home inspections or showings or anything, just to kind of get an idea. I know I'm a hands-on person myself. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have any agent come with me.
There you go. I think you got something coming up this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. I think after this training, we have an inspection in Bern.
There you go. We get a hands-on training today if anyone's interested. So that's definitely a good point. Thanks for putting that out there, Gina. I appreciate that. Now, when it comes to the inspection day, okay, the day of the inspections, the opportunity for the buyers to check out the property in its entirety. Okay, they can, generally open every door, flip every switch, operate all of the appliances. They can check just about everything out. I'm a fan of giving our buyers enough time on the home inspection. When it comes to home inspections that, let's say, take less than an hour, a home inspector in some cases can move through a property and get a whole thorough home inspection done in 45 minutes. It does not happen every day, but it does happen on occasion. I'm a firm believer, and that's not really enough time for your buyer to really be comfortable with understanding the ins and outs of the home. I like to explain things to all of my clients, regardless of what their experience level is. I like to get them hands-on with, hey, this is your water main. This is why you shouldn't put cabinetry in front of it. This is your gas shutoff valve. This is how you can operate and change the temperatures to your hot water tank. Here's your smart thermostat. This is how it works, or your air filter. I'm a very hands-on person when it comes to those things. Some other inspectors might not be like that. Okay. So make sure that when your chosen inspector is going through the home, an hour to 2.5 hours is pretty common in the home inspection industry. Anything less than that, and your clients might not get that inspection experience they need to feel comfortable with actually operating, or I like to say driving the home. Okay. Take advantage of the knowledge and experience of that home inspector. Do not be afraid to ask us questions. We can explain from general contracting point of views to what issues are minor to which issues are major, or why you might want to fix something 2 months down the road versus 6 months or a year down the road. Okay, we're a very good resource for educating clients when it comes to repairs. One of the most important things is when we have a big major issue, which we'll talk about soon. Breaking down major issues to, let's say, a first-time home buyer or a agent is very, very important. Now, myself as a home inspector, I explain things a little bit differently than other home inspectors do. In our inspection report, we put major issues in a summary right at that top of that page. And what that does is that explains what our issue is in clear-cut terms so everybody can understand that. And they're going to know that it's a major issue. There's going to be no gray areas with me. One of the important things is that $1,500 threshold. We're always looking for things that could potentially cost $1,500 to repair. There's a lot of issues out there that are borderline $1,500, and sometimes it might be just under that, or it might be just above that. It's important that our inspectors not calling out a dozen different majors that aren't true majors, okay? And that's going to come with you guys getting experience out in the field with us or other inspectors, okay?
Hey, Ryan.
Yes.
I think what I could do, if it's gonna be helpful, I don't know if Ryan Clark, you can hear me too, but since you can't really share your computer and your stuff, I obviously have reports from past clients and stuff. I know that they have no problem sharing. I could email it to the people in the group so they can kind of get a feel for what one looks like and how things are broken down a little bit.
I think it'd be better. You should see if you could send it over to Ryan and we can scroll through that. I can show everybody what an inspection summary is.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah.
All right. So reporting method.
Yeah, send it off to me. I can open my email.
All right. So reporting method. Now, there is no standard practice for reporting on a home inspection. There's some guys out there that still use paper and pencil and they've got a carbon copy that they tear off and here you go. Some people are going to use a digital camera and go back and do a lot of office work. Some people use their cell phone, a tablet, a laptop. There's hundreds of different ways to actually put together a home inspection report. And unlike agents where we typically have standard forms that we fill out, as home inspectors, we don't have that. It's the Wild West when it comes to reporting forms. Usually what most home inspectors do is we buy a software package and then we build our own template on how to rate and remark the house. Some people might give you a very good narrative with no photos. Some people are going to give you photos with a really good narrative in that report. Has anybody not seen a home inspection report in here at all? Let's get some people on and let me know. Okay, so nobody's seen one, I'm assuming. We'll get one up here shortly. Now, when it comes to
I've seen one, I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Now, from your experience, if you can remember that report, do you remember if it was really easy to read, was it easy to navigate, or was it just
Yes.
information thrown at you that you kind of got to read through?
Oh, no, it was actually really good. He had pictures. It was really well.
Yeah.
My problem that I found that with my clients, the house was wonderful, except, where they, flag things, and it's not necessarily $1,500, but the wording threw my client completely off.
True. That is an excellent point to bring up. There are lots of inspectors out there because there's no, it's the Wild West. We've got to learn our own trade. We don't have trainers, or it's not, you go to school to become a home inspector. It's a 2-week class and you pass an online exam. It's not like the in-depth training that you guys as agents have. It's really, really important to communicate with that inspector. Do we have major issues or not? Some inspectors keep their mouth shut and they said, well, you have to wait for the report. I don't necessarily think that's right because that leaves everybody in a very big gray area when they leave the house, very confused. In our reports, we're very unique. I believe we're the only ones in the industry that take full liability for anything when it comes to that. And in our summary page, we have right at the top of our page, the potential of exceeding X amount of dollars. We put that right in our reports because every real estate transaction, we might not have that $1,500 threshold. In a market like today, people are using that threshold as a negotiating tactic. And what we're doing is we're finding that people are saying, hey, it's a $2,000 or $3,000 or $8,000 inspection threshold where we can custom tune our reports to say, hey, this item has the potential to exceed $2,800 or whatever the case may be. Other inspection reports don't do that for you, and they'll just write major issue. Personally, I don't like to use the word major issue. That's a really scary word that just throws red flags all over the place. And it's not fair to your client because something that you explained to them is fixable. Now you're saying in a report is a major issue. It throws a lot of confusion out there. So I'm glad that you brought that point up. That's really good. Does anybody else have any questions when it comes to the actual report itself? No? Now, let me ask, I'm going to put Gina on the spot really quick if she's still in here. With your
I'm here.
with other home inspectors out there. How often
Mhm.
have you been on inspections where an inspector said, nope, there's no issues, and then you'll find when you get your home inspection report that there was in fact issues that nobody communicated with? Has that
Wow, it's
happened?
almost like you've heard me complain about that before. But yeah, I mean, even, and that's why I said, like, even as a listing agent, I like to go and say, hey, I'm not going to refute it. It's a house. If there's an issue, I'm not going to get all personal and defensive, which unfortunately we will find the agents do. I just want to see what it is. I can see it with my own eyes. I start making phone calls, and I did exactly that for a property of mine that I was listing. I just sat in the kitchen and worked on my laptop while the inspector did his thing. The buyer was not there. She was from New York City. And I asked him if he had any questions about, where certain things were, anything, if he could show me if there was anything wrong with the house. And he said, nope, we're all good. And then I get a phone call from a buyer's agent from a very scared buyer that got a report that was basically like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I'm like, that's interesting. I literally asked if there was anything that I needed to get looked at, and no. So just like you said right there, Craig, I mean, we call them alarmists. It's all in the wording. It's all how you break it down. And like Ryan said, making it unique to the client and the transaction is huge, because there's people that go in there, and issues is such a subjective term. There's no, what might be an issue for someone who's owned a couple houses, they own a construction company, they can do a few fixes here and there and they're fine with it. A first-time home buyer who doesn't even know how to screw in a light bulb, they are a completely different demographic, a completely different clientele base that you're playing to. And you don't want to scare them off, because it's not scary. Anything can be fixed, but we need all the information to know how to proceed forward. So it's really important to get someone that knows how to convey all that information without scaring the life into a potential buyer, because then it just gets messy for everybody.
Yeah, and the word used was defective.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not necessarily true.
Right. And it wasn't.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, one of the things that all of us as agents understand coming into this industry, home inspectors that have been in the industry for many, many years are not afraid to say that's not a problem. It's a borderline problem, but it's not a problem. Here's why. We will find that as newer, younger inspectors come into the industry, younger meaning inspection experience is younger. You find that people aren't some inspectors just aren't comfortable with how to relay a problem, and they just say, oh, it's a major issue. That term major issue is a real estate term that us as home inspectors, we kind of adopted, because that's something we're looking for. And that's everybody portrays that differently. With us, you get the potential of exceeding $1,500. You're going to get safety issues, and then deferred maintenance. Anything after that, our clients are going to understand they inherit that as a new homeowner, and they're going to have to make those fixes over a couple of years or so. I'm a fan of telling people, hey, verbally, your 3 to 5 year plan is going to be start to update your plumbing. Your plumbing's 110 years old right now. It's still functioning just fine, but normal life expectancy is X amount of years. And over the next couple of years, instead of you throwing money at repairing things, it would be better to do a minor patch and then upgrade things in the next 3 to 5. Okay. People are going to understand that a whole lot better than getting a report that goes, oh, your plumbing is old and it's going to die soon, and that's it. We will all see those inspection reports out there in the industry that are very scary to read or very confusing to read. Not all reports are easy to read. Not all reports have inspection summaries that explain the major issues, the safety issues, the maintenance items. Okay. There are lots of inspection reports that you will get a key that says, okay, here's a hammer and here's a hard hat. Well, the hard hat means it's an issue, and you got to scroll through the report to look through the hard hat. Okay, that's our negotiation point. That gets confusing. Clear inspection reports are going to be really important. Everybody in this room should go out, your homework in the next month, go out on a couple of home inspections with agents in your offices, understand how other home inspectors are going to operate, see if you can get your hands on that inspection report and review it. sit down at night, take an hour of your time, go through the inspection reports, read the language that's in the inspection reports. As home inspectors, we're all trained in the home inspection schools, and even the continuing education classes are past the liability. Give the liability to someone else. A lot of inspectors nowadays, they're afraid to take on that liability because everybody's afraid of that 3-letter word sue. Okay. At the end of the day, if you educate somebody properly on what the issue is and that it's not a rush to get it fixed, people are going to be a lot more comfortable. They're going to understand things a lot more than reading a report that says, hey, this is a major issue, get it fixed. Because at the end of the day, if us as inspectors need to say, hire an electrician for every outlet that's wrong, well, our client's going to get very overwhelmed with how many electricians they're going to have to hire. And that's something it's important to read these inspection reports because not all of them are created equal by any means. Gina, you've had some very confusing inspection reports with some language in there that I've read and I said, whoa, this just makes absolutely no sense with anything. Or you have a report that's got 20 majors on it, but at the end of the day, those major items they called out were all few $100 here, few $100 there items that the inspector just wasn't, comfortable with explaining properly to people. All right, now let's talk about repairs and replacement. Okay, when it comes to repairs or replacements, we've got a couple of options. Okay, homeowners can do it themselves. Clients can always inherit those and tackle them themselves. But when it comes to during this real estate transaction, let's get our clients protected while they're protected from that home inspector looking out for them with that house. They're protected by their real estate attorney. That's hopefully a local real estate attorney. They're protected by you as agents. We want to find a reputable contractor that's going to provide warranties that are going to be transferred to our new buyer. That's something that's important to look for. Okay. When it comes to warranties, it is not uncommon for homeowners to say, yeah, we can get that mold fixed, or yes, we can fix that foundation, no problem. And once that buyer moves into the house, they have issues with it and they've got no leg to stand on because there were no warranties on a fix that was kind of handyman together versus professionally repaired. It's really important, any contractor that you guys network with, find out if they have an opportunity to maybe not warranty their daily work, but at least warranty this work that's going to be performed through the real estate transaction so your clients are better protected 6 months down the road if an issue ever was to actually come up. That brings us another point. When we're on the inspection, we call out a major issue. Your contractors are going to give us reports for what that issue may be. Okay. You always have the opportunity to rehire that home inspector to come out to the property once that repair is done to kind of give it a once over. If it's important to make sure that our clients are going to be comfortable moving forward with that house. So you can always reach out to your inspector, get them back there, find out if there's an issue with one of the repairs that was done. Maybe it wasn't quite done right, but it's still going to function fine. That's something that it's good to get that looked at. Myself, I went on a final walkthrough inspection 2 weeks ago for someone because they had a really, really bad experience with the sellers. The sellers kind of tried hiding things. There were issues with appliances. They did some nasty stuff to the house and they wanted me to go do a once over to just make sure everything's in good shape and the repairs that they said were done were actually done. Luckily, everything was perfectly fine. But while I was there, they're at their final walkthrough. I had the opportunity to run all of the plumbing over again, test every single appliance again really quick, make sure that the house is truly functioning the way it was when we inspected it 60 days prior. And that gives people a very, very huge value when they can have these re-inspections done on any repair items. It's not uncommon for people to say they're contractors or they're handyman or their uncle's a contractor and they can fix it. So just make sure moving forward, find out if we can get warranties on some of these contractors. A lot of contractors will offer some type of warranty or guarantee on their work, but it's not common practice to offer warranties. Talk more with your office admin or manager, find out who they're referring, find out who they've had good experiences with. Not a fan of going to Google to Google a contractor. Word of mouth is going to be really important as we move forward in our real estate careers. Anybody can Google a contractor, but word of mouth is going to confirm that that contractor's done good quality work, or they're kind of somebody who doesn't have the greatest customer service. Okay. Does anybody have any questions when it comes to repair or major items on a home inspection? No. Ryan, do you have any input on anything so far?
Well, I'm loving Gina's input. I think we're gonna rename this the Gina and Ryan home inspection show.
Yeah.
But no, to your point, I mean, it's we want to make sure that if we are referring somebody to our clients, that they're competent home inspectors, that they're not alarmists, because you're going to get a home inspector that can try to impress your client by their knowledge of a house and say, well, you know, that crown molding up there is not to code. Like, what does that even mean? Right. And that's the other thing too. I don't know if you touched on it, but home inspectors aren't looking for code, right? They're looking for major issues. So you'll get, you know, dad of the year crawling underneath the deck to point out something to you, the home inspector, and says, well, you know, this isn't to code. And, you know, we have to obviously explain to them that that's not what we're looking for. So continue on. You're doing a remarkable job. Gina's really doing better, but, you know, you're still there.
So that's a good point. That's my my next take actually is when it comes to the, you know, the argument or how we're going to actually negotiate this $1,500 you know, threshold. So, you know, keep in mind that only items that are typically the only items that are negotiable are going to be things that individually exceed that $1,500 threshold. Some things that are outside of that $1,500 threshold, a lot of the times might be health or safety issues like high radon, mold, maybe asbestos, missing railings, FHA inspection repairs that might come up. Carbon monoxide and smoke detectors that should be present. So those are other little things, but they're not high dollar at all. And it's not uncommon for some of those items to not get negotiated. And your client might need to put a little bit of money or time into the property themselves to even fix the peeling paint issue that came up from the VA loan, or the missing handrails, or the wood rot on the soffits or the fascia. So those are things that if you have a client that has specific loan requirements, understand what those requirements are going to be, and then start taking notes. Let your home inspector know, hey, this is my client. They're a nervous Nelly. They're a first-time home buyer. Oh, and by the way, they're doing a FHA loan. Okay, now that home inspector knows to point out some specific FHA issues that might come up. I typically tell people the FHA is going to be looking for safety things: peeling paint, tripping hazards, broken glass, wood rot. Those are usually the big issues that they're looking for. If we find any of those, we can bring attention to that and say, hey, put this on your honey-do list. This could come up on an appraisal issue. Okay. Those are things that we're going to be trained to look for too. So let your inspector know right at the start what type of financing your client's going to be doing. Okay. Now, the inspection report. It is very, very important that you and your clients read that entire inspection report after they get it. The first section of that is going to be a summary. And then after that, we're going to have photos with different ratings on if it's good, better, bad, and what those issues are categorized as. Now, when it comes to the report itself, the number one complaint we get as home inspectors.
Hey, Ryan, not to interrupt you. Do you want me to show the report now while you're talking about it?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop my screen share. And
Okay. Perfect. All right. Now, as he's getting ready for that screen share, the number one thing to do is read through that inspection report. Now, we will all find that home inspector that said, oh, everything's great, no issues. You get a report, you get the summary, there's no issues. Life is good. Beautiful house. We don't need to do anything other than, you know, move in, enjoy the margaritas on the weekend, and kick your feet and enjoy the football game. Okay. You will find that in that report, that home inspector had 19 active leaks. Okay. Well, the active leaks didn't make it into the summary for whatever reason that may be. You do your final walkthrough, you don't notice them, And then 2 months down the road, there's having a flooded basement because of all these leaks. The home inspector did not portray to their client properly. Read the reports. The number one complaint we get is because clients did not read the report and they're accusing us of missing something that was right there with photos, with red arrows explaining everything that was happening. I can confidently tell you that we will get, let's say, 2 complaints out of almost 1,000 home inspections a year. Every one of those complaints that we get were right there in their inspection report detailed. I had a recent first-time home buyer, okay? They just purchased a house this summer in Schenectady. I walked them through and held their hand through the entire process, explaining all the ins and outs. And I let them know, hey, your plumbing system, this is a galvanized steel plumbing system. Your main water line is galvanized steel. I said, now, the normal life expectancy of this type of plumbing supply line is going to be about 65 to 85 years, okay? They understood that. My next question is always, how old is the house? They answered me, the house is 110 years old. Okay, great. So what that means is the plumbing is original. It's past that normal life expectancy. This is one of the things right now to where we're starting to get some leaks on some of these joints here and there. We've got 3 active leaks. We've got older 110-year-old plumbing that's near the end of its life. There's nothing that has failed other than minor repairs on the active leaks. Okay, great. They did not understand that moving forward. They get into the house, they have their parents come in. Everybody utilizes plumbing a little bit differently than the last person. And now they're complaining because they've got issues on their faucets. Now they've got issues at their drains and their water supply lines. That's something that they just did not register in their head with communicating. They accused me of not inspecting the plumbing system at all, when in fact I had 3 whole pages on that in their report, and it was in their summary clear as day. That's a perfect example of a first-time home buyer that took all of the verbal information, forgot half of what the verbal information was, never read their inspection report, and then they open it up 6 months later to find out, wow, these issues, maybe we should have taken this into consideration before purchasing the house. Okay. Now, what Ryan has pulled up right now, it looks like this is an inspection report that we did for Gina a couple of months back. That at the beginning of the report, we try our best to get photos of the house. We personally, we don't like to pull photos off the internet unless we absolutely have to, or the photo didn't come out quite clear when we're at the inspection. I kind of like to document what that climate was like the day of the inspection. Some inspectors will pull a listing photo of the front of the house. What that does is that's going to portray what the house looks like in a perfect edited photo. It doesn't give you the opportunity to look back on that house and go, hey, this roof was snow covered that day. We couldn't see it. Or, hey, there was a tree that was overhanging the roof that had some branches on it. Okay. I like to take photos the day of the inspection when we do it, so we know what the condition is if we ever need to refer back to that. Okay. Ryan, if you're able to scroll down a little bit there, we can get into our summary. Okay, right there. Now it looks like we have the potential of exceeding $1,500 or $2,000 to correct. Okay, this is that category we are talking about. This category, this is unique to our company. Other inspectors might say major issues or repair items, or however they may do it. I believe I'm the only one that physically puts a dollar amount on repair items in home inspection reports. You'll notice under there, we've got mold-like substance. We'll talk about mold shortly, but when it comes to mold, almost every single situation now will exceed that $1,500 threshold. Mold is also a safety and health situation too. Now, when it comes to mold, every individual is going to react to it differently. So you could have somebody that walks into a house and is breathing and perfectly fine, and you can have somebody else that walks in and starts to feel like they're being choked, or they got allergy symptoms out of nowhere and they're not quite sure. Mold is one of those things, and the real estate industry has been regulated in the last couple of years, and it's something that is not policed, but it's policed to an extent to make sure people don't get taken advantage of. Mold comes up in, let's say, 80% of houses these days. Most common places to find it are going to be our basement and our attic spaces. And a lot of the times when we find mold, it's actually a very big surprise to most sellers and listing agents. Mold is found in those areas that aren't traveled to on a daily basis as normal homeowners. We're not climbing up into our attic or taking a peek in our basement on a daily basis to find out if there's a mold issue. So when it comes up, some people are very surprised by it. What we do is we provide a mold assessment report, and we'll show you what that looks like shortly after this. Now, when it comes to oil tanks, typically oil tanks are not one of those items that's going to exceed that $1,500, in this case, $2,000 threshold. An oil tank to get it replaced could be about $1,000 borderline, maybe even a little bit less. With this specific house that we did with Gina, it wasn't just the oil tank that had problems. It had issues on the entire oil supply system. We categorized those as one, and that wound up, I think, exceeding about $3,500 was the repair on that. You're going to see here that we've got nice, clear language. If I can read this, let's see what I said here. There's several concerns with the oil tank / supply system, which indicates a replacement may be needed. The following was noted. Okay, significant corrosion seen on the oil tank legs and the underside of the oil tank, significant corrosion seen on the oil supply line and oil fill pipe as it enters the foundation. The supply line has been dented, crushed, and kinked in multiple areas, and there's signs of periodic leakage, which is seen at the oil fill line and oil filters. We also noted there's a strong odor of fuel oil that can be smelt while in the vicinity of the oil tank. And the fill and vent line of the oil tank are plastic and will need to be replaced with proper materials. When it comes to that, I just simply recommend, it's recommended to speak with a professional oil tank company to determine the cost of repair or replacement of this system. Clean, clear language. We can all understand that. We organized that, gave some good bullet points so the client can understand it. You can confidently give this inspection report to your oil tank company, and they're going to go, oh, okay, this is what we're looking at today. Easy. That wound up being a pretty confident. I think it was $3,500 in repairs. Gina negotiated that. The homeowners had no idea. They were more than willing to get it fixed. They didn't want to have any issues with oil or their heat. So that was one of those things that was really easily negotiated by Gina. She did a great job with those clients. The other thing it's not common to find is termite activity. Okay. When it comes to termites, wood destroying insect reports are an ancillary service to that home inspection. Not every home inspector is trained on what to look for when it comes to insects. Not all of them are going to offer it. Most of them are going to charge an additional fee. It can range from, let's say, $150 to $175, depending on who you're getting to do a pest inspection on the property. In this specific one, we found live termite swarmers, which a termite swarmer looks like an ant with wings. They're a little different color and a little different shape, but that's how we identified them. They're in a basement. Let's see what I said here. It said termite swarmers were seen at the time of that inspection on the basement flooring. It's recommended to speak with a professional pest control company to determine the extent of the activity and if there's any damage present. Simple. Okay. There's no confusing language in that that's going to freak out a client when they go to read that report. Okay. We include some photos in there also so they can understand what it is. Now, Ryan, can you scroll down just a little bit more so we can check out that asbestos section? All right. Now, let's see here. Perfect. Now, when it comes to asbestos, asbestos is something that as home inspectors, we are not required to inspect. We are told if we see something, say something, essentially. Okay. When it comes to asbestos, I like to explain to every single one of my clients, there are no rules or regulations against asbestos requiring it to be removed or fixed. Okay. The United States EPA even says on their website, they've got step-by-step instructions as a homeowner on how to tackle it yourself. They get, step one, put gloves on, safety glasses. They explain all of that as well as how to dispose of that asbestos. Okay. When it comes to asbestos, I simply just note where it was. Asbestos-like material. Asbestos-like material is noted on heat supply piping. Okay. Again, that's easy language, any homeowner can understand what that is. Signs of several leaks are seen and staining on the duct tape that the pipe is wrapped in. Okay, it's reasonable to assume that corrosion and hidden damage could be present to the piping. Okay, it's recommended to speak with a professional plumber and asbestos contractor to determine the cost of repairs and to ensure if there is no hidden damage to the duct tape wrap piping. Now, when we go in 100-year-old houses, we're going to see that old white pipe insulation on a lot of these steam pipes or boiler systems. All of that is going to be friable to a point. Friable means it's starting to deteriorate. It might be crumbling and maybe torn in some areas. The EPA says if it's friable, you want to make it not friable, seal it up. There's no real true way to seal it up. A lot of contractors will use duct tape. They'll tape all of these pipes. However, in this situation, you'd see in more detail inside the bulk of the report, somebody wrapped those pipes, and when they wrapped it, they may have hit that pipe too hard, caused some leaks, and that entire pipe was soggy and it started to fill up with water. So what had happened was somebody needed to cut off all of that asbestos. Typically, during our home inspection, we do not make asbestos major issues, okay? Just because the fact that there's no rules or regs that require it to be removed. We would usually put that asbestos-like material in its own red category so people can understand, hey, you've got asbestos here. This is the condition it's in. And we send you a link to the EPA so you can do your own research and make your own judgment call on what you want to do. Some other home inspectors, they're going to say, well, you have asbestos, that's a major issue. And they might not explain or break down what asbestos actually is. Now, I'll explain it to everybody here. Asbestos, the rules and regs when it comes to asbestos, that was designed for the commercial industry, the people that are working with it on a daily basis. They're the guys and gals that are going to work. They're getting covered in the asbestos dust at work. It's going from their clothes to their cars to their laundry room to their bedroom. These people are breathing it in 24/7, 365, more than likely in a dusty environment of some sort. To a normal homeowner like you or I, what we can do is we can have asbestos in our house perfectly fine as long as you're not touching it or disturbing it. It's not uncommon for me to tell my clients, just, don't start, hanging your clothes to dry on the asbestos wrap pipe. It will fall apart eventually. Don't go up into your attic space and eat your bowl of cereal when it's covered in vermiculite, which is another style of asbestos insulation. Okay. It's all in how we portray what that issue is and how they can get it fixed. 99% of the clients, when I explain that to them, they're like, well, okay, now I know what the fact is on asbestos. I'm not so concerned anymore. This situation, it happened to be asbestos pipe wrapped insulation. It was damaged. It was duct tape. It had some active leaks on it. It was a problem. The homeowners knew it was a problem. They were more than willing to get it fixed. Gina negotiated that fix. She did a great job. And the clients actually hired us back for a re-inspection to check out that oil, the termite, and the asbestos. They were super happy with the inspection report, and they understood everything. This was just one of those perfect examples of a really good transaction, really good communication on everybody's end. And I mean, Gina negotiated, close to $8,000 in repairs for these clients, which is great. Okay. Now, when it comes to the other portion of that report, we're going to have safety issues, tripping hazards, broken glass, maybe a little carbon monoxide situation or a damaged outlet here or there. Those are pretty common things to find, maybe a damaged step in that section of the safety. Now, if Ryan scrolls down a little bit more, we're going to have a category that's called deferred maintenance. Okay. The deferred maintenance are things like, okay, you've got a little bit of wood rot right here, but it's not to that point to where you're going to fall through your deck. It's something that in the next couple of years or right now, you want to start on that maintenance to prevent damage from getting worse. Okay. It's not uncommon for us to have doors on houses that just don't have flashing. They have just a piece of wood on the bottom of it. Water gets through that wood, it can get into the basement. So we always recommend to our clients, hey, consider installing some flashing there to better protect that from water damage. That's something that we find on 90% of the houses that we have. Ryan, if you scroll down a little bit more, do I have anything past that deferred maintenance section? Let's see here. some things here and there, nothing crazy. Now, how the summaries are put together, okay? The summary is grabbing all of our issues from that home inspection report, all of the photos, everything that we talked about, and it compiles it all and shrinks it down just to little sentences, and it throws it on the summary. The summary is not the entire inspection report and should no way be considered that entire inspection report. So it's important that your real estate attorney that you're dealing with, who's local, hopefully, gets that inspection report, gets to go through it, maybe review it with their client if they have any concerns, maybe review it with the home inspector if they've got some areas that are a little bit confusing. The bulk of the report, if Ryan scrolls down, you're going to find that it has the photos, it has the better detail and descriptions in there. There are a lot of things that we delete from the summary because we just unnecessary information to have. Here's a good example right here. We took photos of some landscaping. They had quite some, trees overhanging the property. We're just letting people know, trim that stuff back, get some sunlight there. It's going to improve the condition of the house. We'll take a photo of the deck. Things that, pay attention to it once in a while. You might need some maintenance to that. Okay. Let's keep scrolling down, Ryan. Let's see if there's I wonder if there's a mold assessment all the way at the bottom. It could be like page 46 or something. Wow, this is a 50-page report. Now, this is a 50-page inspection report. Our inspection reports are typically, let's say, 30, 35 pages long. One of the reasons why this one happens to be 50, this client was out of town. They were not at the home inspection. They did not get to do a standard walkthrough. Gina walked through and sold this house to them with, Zoom. She was going through just digitally taking photos, sending them to their clients. They seemed really happy. And in a situation like that, I tend to go above and take 3 times the amount of photos so they can see everything clear as day and really understand what they're getting. Okay, so that's why this is a 50-page report versus our standard 30, 35-page report.
Hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I sent Ryan a mold from that same property. I sent
Okay.
a mold assessment, a pest report, water purity, all that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, no, this is a great example. Thanks, Gina. I appreciate it. So this situation, Ryan or Gina or any of our other agents in here, our average home inspection report is going to change, how many pages are in that report from inspector to inspector. I can do a 30,000 square foot commercial building and give them a 10-page report. And I can do a $1,500 square foot ranch and have a 40-page report. These reports range significantly from building style to building style, the age, how much maintenance has been taken care of, maybe some issues have been neglected, and commercial properties are going to range also, but that's a different story, okay? For the most part, this bulk of the inspection report is really designed for the client, where the summary is really going to be designed for that quick reference for you as an agent, or a quick reference for the real estate attorney or the agent's attorneys on the other side, so they can understand what's going on. Then they can refer back to a photo in the report if they needed to. Okay, but don't consider that inspection summary as the full report and stress that to your clients. Okay, does anybody have any questions with how this home inspection report is related to, just before we jump into talking about mold? Ryan, do you have any input on this at all?
Again, to your point, I mean, look at it, review it, but if you have specific questions, don't try to interpret it, right? Call your home inspector. The kiss of death for any of us to do is going out of our lanes, with the exception of Gila, who is also an attorney. We shouldn't talk about real estate law because that's not our forte. Yes, we have an understanding of it, the same way we have an understanding of the home inspection process. If something seems missing or something seems like different, contact the home inspector, talk to them, review the report, talk to your clients about maintenance issues versus major issues. Now, I did have a quick question. Obviously we know that the $1,500 threshold is there, but what are some pass fail items where it doesn't make a difference of the money?
Yeah. So when it comes to pass fail items, I mean, we're always going to have that that FHA or that VA or USDA style loan that's going to have their own pass fail requirements, like peeling paint, tripping hazards, broken glass, mold, asbestos, things like that. But pass fail from a home inspection point of view, radon. Radon is one of those things that we'll talk about shortly. Radon is regulated by the EPA and New York State. When it comes to radon, they have literature out there that says if the radon levels come back at a 4.0 or higher, you're required to put a radon system in. When it comes to the real estate world, not enough people are educated with radon quite yet to understand that radon is one of those things that you need to have a system installed. And a lot of the times I see people getting credits toward radon systems. They don't put that radon system in the house. They go to sell it 2 years and now they got to pay for it again. Radon, I believe, is one of those pass fail. It's something that it's very easily corrected. Ryan, correct me, is that still a pass fail item right now? Because some systems might not hit that $1,500 threshold.
Yeah, I mean, I always can tell my buyer clients that yes, pass fail has radon, but it's not the end of the world. A radon mitigation system could be anywhere from $800 to $1,500 in my experience.
Yep.
And if you're working with a seller, tell your seller it's in their best interest to fix it, because you're gonna have to disclose it next time. And it's gonna, if you have a buyer on the hook now, pay the money now to get it fixed, get it remedied, and continue the ball moving forward.
Ryan, we do have that example, Ryan Clark, from our friends on Scotch Ridge, Dwaynesburg. It was a bigger house, so the buyers had a 5,000 inspection threshold instead of 1,500 or 2,000, and radon came up. And even though the system was only going to cost, I think it ended up being like $1,700-$1,800, because it was one of those health and safety things. Concern similar in the same ballpark as mold. Even though it didn't hit their quote unquote major threshold, we still all kind of agreed, yeah, we get it. And our sellers, gave them that all taken care of, no problem.
And, not to go off on a tangent, but does everybody understand what Gina was saying with the $5,000 threshold? The norm in real estate is $1,500 because it's a crazy seller's market. These buyers put a $5,000 threshold on it, more expensive house. Joanne White talked about it on winning,
price war.
Winning the price wars, writing the best offer and stuff like that. So be mindful of what the thresholds are as well. If you are talking to your home inspector and you're, with the buyers, tell the home inspector, hey, listen, our threshold on this is $2,500, or our threshold on this is $3,000. There's ways that we could work the system in our favor if something is, if it's that gray area. So the more your home inspector knows, because they're a part of the transaction that works for the buyers, that you also work for, that your attorney also works for. It's the home inspector's job is not to kill the deal, although I think some home inspectors enjoy doing that. Their job is to educate the clients that we all have a mutual agreement with and we all work for.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. Some other pass fail items, other than radon, other than, hitting that dollar amount threshold, we're going to have pest. Pest is one of those things where it's an extra service for most home inspectors. Now, when it comes to pest, we charge $150 for pest inspection. And that's because that when we do it, there's a very big difference in me going through and looking at the structure and then me looking at the structure with pest. So when I'm looking at structure in a basement, can everybody see me okay still? I'll take a flashlight and I'll look at our lumber that we've got, and I'm just looking at it, making sure, okay, it's good, it's strong, there's no damage to that. Now, when I'm looking at the structure and insect issues, I'm studying this material a whole lot more. I'm looking at all three sides of that lumber, really making sure that we don't have any hidden issues like insect, termites, powder post beetles, things like that. And that takes us quite a bit more time to look at those insect issues than it does to just look at the structure. So we charge for that. There's other home inspectors that are out there that will include a free pest inspection. Cautions advised when you do any free service when it comes to something like this might not be the best thing in the world. Okay. From my experience, the people that are charging for those things, you're going to get a little bit more thorough of a job. Okay. Some other issues. Buried oil tanks is a big gray area. It's one of those things where I think it's contract contingent. Is that correct, Ryan? We find a buried oil tank on a property. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, some lenders want you to remove it. Some will, say no.
Yep.
I bought a house with a buried oil tank, and the sellers ended up taking it out, but it wasn't anything specific with the loan. It was just, hey, I'm giving you X amount over asking. Can you do me a solid? And the lady was awesome. She said, yeah, I'll have it removed tomorrow. I sold a house over in Albany that had a buried oil tank, which we couldn't get to because it was under the stairwell. We just want to make sure there's no oil in there and no active leaks, so we're ready to rock and we can close.
Yep. Yeah. Oil tanks are one of those things where if you have or suspect that there is a buried oil tank, get it looked at. Don't just get a verbal information on that. Get somebody to come in there, run a metal detector, run some sonar in the ground, do some tests. Make sure that we don't have a buried oil tank. A buried oil tank can be $1,500 to just dig it up, remove it from the ground, or it can be significantly more than that. When it comes to buried oil tanks, we don't know if we have an issue with it or not until that tank is physically removed from the ground, and then they do soil sampling below that oil tank to make sure there's no residual oil that leaked out. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of This Old House, but it's a really good TV show that'll educate you on a lot of cool inspection stuff. This Old House has a few good episodes about buried oil tanks and what that process is. I was actually showing Gina a couple of weeks ago. It's very educational. If anybody has some time today, check out This Old House. They got some great information and content on there.
And they have even better accents.
Yeah, they do.
Now, for those that don't know, Craig might know, but maybe Gila, I don't think Chip probably wasn't even born when it came out. This Old House was like the precursor to HGTV.
Oh,
it was on PBS and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was just a bunch of guys wearing outfits very similar to Ryan, going through a inspection. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't tell you how many clients say, I feel like we're on HGTV right now and agents, and I'm like, I guess it's just my script, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, that's a really good resource. Start watching that. Instead of watching HGTV, go watch This Old House. Let's get into, the building issues that we could have. Check that out instead of, the what color paint somebody's going to be putting on the wall. You'll find that it's a pretty cool show. Some other issues that we're going to have that are pass fail, any septic issues. Okay. Septic, that system's got to be operating. Okay. If there's a damaged lid or distribution box, it's only a few $100 fix. So we're nowhere near that inspection $1,500 threshold, but it's a system that's black and white. It's pass or fail. So a septic system fails in an entirety if the lid is cracked or if it's got a bad distribution box. Those are also really, really important things to get looked at thoroughly. Now, when it comes to septic, we'll touch on that very, very lightly. I am not a septic inspector. I'm a firm believer in let the pros that have been doing that their entire life, pump that tank, check it out, run the water, run a full test on it, and just make sure it's handling what it needs to handle. There are ways to inspect a septic system very thoroughly without actually pumping the septic tank. Okay. When it comes to septic systems, we want to make sure what's coming into that tank is going to be flowing out of that tank also. We don't need to pump it to look at it. Only thing pumping is going to tell us is what the condition of that concrete tank is, or that block tank or steel tank or composite tank actually is. We can run a system, make sure that leach field's good, make sure that distribution's good, make sure everything's flowing properly without pumping the tank. Okay. Let's see here. Other inspection pass fail issues. Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. In New York State, I believe we only need one smoke and CO detector present during a real estate transaction. So if we don't have one there, we want it to get installed. When it comes to my point of view from a home inspector, I want a smoke and CO detector in every room, every hallway, tops of stairways. I don't want to see it in the kitchen. I don't want to see it in the garage or the bathroom or laundry room. If we want to see smoke or CO detectors in that room, we want to replace that smoke with a heat detector so it doesn't nuisance trip from dust or anything like that in those areas because they tend to be dusty climates. Okay. That's it, I think, as far as pass or fail items. Ryan or Gina, or does anybody else have any input on what might be a pass or fail?
No, I think you nailed them all.
Okay, cool. So let's change direction right now. When it comes to home inspections, we're gonna, kind of turn and we're gonna talk about mold. Now, has anybody had an experience with mold in your own personal lives or professional lives with real estate? Has anyone had mold on their own personal house or had a mold assessment or inspection done? Ray, have you had or heard of mold come up yet? I don't know if you can hear me.
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
No, not
So
yet.
when it comes to mold, mold is so easy to take care of. It is nothing to stress out about at all. A lot of clients, especially younger buyers, tend to freak out over mold just because they don't understand it. We've always had that, that saying, "Oh, it's black mold." It's black. Is it black mold? I don't know if it's black mold or not. It looks black to me. When it comes to mold, color doesn't mean a thing in the industry. All mold is going to be taken care of and cleaned up the same exact way, whether it's black, white, purple, it does not matter what it is, it's all cleaned up the same exact way. When it comes to mold, some inspectors will charge extra for a mold inspection when they do their home inspection. We don't do that. Ours is completely free of charge, no questions asked. Mold is a three-part process. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read over this brochure that I have on our website in the information tab. It's called the mold assessment. All right. Now, when it comes to mold, there's licensing requirements. Not every home inspector is going to be licensed for mold, so you might not get anything related to mold on your home inspection report. It is very, very wise to make sure that your chosen home inspector is licensed for mold assessments and inspections. Okay, that is so important. I can't tell you how many times that we get calls back a couple of weeks or months after somebody moves into a house and their home inspector overlooked an $8, $9, $15,000 mold problem because they hired an inspector who wasn't familiar with mold. Or they hired an inspector that was familiar with mold, but the client didn't want to pay an extra whatever that fee might be to write up the reports. So that brings me to this next point here, Ryan. I've got, if you click on that information tab, we've got a brochure and it'll say mold assessment brochure. Yep, right at the top there. Perfect. Okay. Now, for anybody that wants to know what the website is, it's inspectny.net. All this information is there. You can download it, send it out to your clients, do whatever you want to do to be able to utilize it. Now, when it comes to mold on that page 2, okay, it says, why do mold assessors and remediators need to be licensed? Well, after Hurricane Sandy, New York State witnessed a noticeable increase in the general health risks imposed by mold growth, as well as an increase in victims of unscrupulous contractors offering mold-related services. In its response, New York State implemented a law January 1st, 2016, to regulate the inspection and remediation of mold. Now, the causes of mold are not well understood by many, and it's in the interest of public safety that those offering any mold-related services are properly regulated and trained. Okay. Now, a brief summary of the New York State mold law. To put it simply, the new law requires that mold assessors and remediators are licensed by the state of New York, and that the assessor, which is the inspector, is not employed by the company performing the mold remediation. Now, the new law also sets minimum work standards, including the creation of a mold remediation work plan, as well as a post-remediation inspection to ensure that mold has been properly taken care of, there was no corners cut, and nobody got taken advantage of. this rule, this inspection is a very, very important consumer protection law. In the past, it is not uncommon to see somebody saying, well, it's going to cost $10,000 to fix that mold in the basement. Well, in reality, it's only a $2,500 fix for a pro to do it. Okay. It is very, very important that you have an inspector that's licensed for mold inspections and knows what they're doing with them. Now, a mold inspection a good report should have photos, tons of photos of the area, maybe a couple of photos giving you the close-up so you know exactly what you're looking at. Hey, here's a close-up picture of that growth. Hey, here's a picture of your dehumidifier that's just turned off all the time. Or hey, here's a picture of your plumbing lines that are getting condensation. They need some pipe insulation. So that mold assessment report is not just an assessment on how to clean up the mold, but it's an assessment on the condition of that climate as a whole. And it's a report on how you can improve that climate to make sure that we don't have mold going down in the future. Because we do not want to revisit mold 3 years down the road if somebody just paid, thousands of dollars, have it cleaned up professionally. Okay. Now, what is a mold assessment? The mold assessment is a visual inspection to discover indoor mold growth, the cause of the mold, and the instruction of what needs to be done to prevent future mold growth. A visual inspection is also performed after the mold remediation to ensure that the problem is properly addressed. Now, it's important to know it is not easy. It's difficult to kill mold. You can't just kill mold. You can deprive mold of moisture, putting it in a dormant state, but mold remediation is not going to prevent mold regrowth if the source of that moisture is not properly addressed. Okay. Now, in a real estate transaction in New York State standards, New York State says, number one, we've got to have all licensed professionals dealing with the mold. Number two, once that mold work's taken care of, we have to have the inspection done to make sure that the visible mold that was there is no longer there anymore. New York State does not require that we correct the source of the mold. One of the reasons being is, you know what, a homeowner doesn't have the money to do it. We can't force a homeowner to fix something if they're not willing to fix it. But we can force them in the mold remediation company to eliminate the visible mold growth. Now, it's also important to know, not all mold remediation companies that do this work are general contractors. So it's not uncommon to have a mold be a two-part process as far as the contracting end goes. You might need a general contractor to fix the deck flashing or the roof issue or the chimney issue. And you're going to need your mold remediation company to clean up those interior areas. So it could be a two-part process. When we come back to do our re-inspection, which is what's called a clearance inspection, that clearance inspection is going to take a whole dozens of photos of the area all over again. We're going to say, yes, there's no visible mold, or nope, there's still some mold present. We need to do some touch-up work. We're going to let you know if that source of the mold was corrected, meaning, did they put the pipe insulation on the pipes? Did they stop that leak? Did they fix that roof that was leaking? Did they fix the chimney flashing? If they didn't fix those things, that's okay. That's fine. But it's important that you're going to see in the inspection report, hey, they didn't fix their ventilation or their leak problem. We're still going to recommend that gets fixed. This still passes the New York State clearance procedures, number one, because there's no visible mold. Number two, because they're probably going to get some type of warranty on regrowth for X amount of days. We can assume that that's not going to come back in the immediate future right now. Okay. So a mold report, don't think of it as a mold report. Think of it as a climate control report as you move forward to help them improve that climate. Okay. Now, the hazards and symptoms of indoor mold growth. I can't stress enough that all of you out there as agents, we're going to walk into some of these houses and we're going to want to do a 180, turn right back out. Okay. If you ever walk into a house and you just feel something's off in the air, you're breathing something, or you feel like you're being put in a chokehold, or your throat's closing up, you're starting to get allergy symptoms out of nowhere. Okay. It's important to understand, don't feel rude by putting on a mask walking around. Okay. One of the best things that happened with this whole pandemic thing is everybody now has some type of mask readily accessible for the most part. Okay. If you ever walk through those houses, throw your mask on. Okay, you don't want to breathe that stuff in. Get done with your showing. Let your clients know what your concern right is. Say, hey, if we're going to put an offer in on this, you know, let's find out what we're going to do with our inspection contingencies when it's related to mold. Let's make sure that we hire a home inspector that's also familiar with mold. Maybe we can find out what this smell might be or where it's actually coming from. Okay. Now, common side effects of mold are going to be coughing, wheezing, running nose, red, itchy, watery eyes, things like that. So your standard allergy symptoms. Now, there's toxic molds out there that can give you much more severe symptoms. And there's molds that aren't going to affect you until you're living in the house for a couple of days. It is what it is. When we're doing that home inspection or that walkthrough, sometimes we're in that house for a very limited time, only a couple of hours at the most. So it's not uncommon for clients once they move into a house to start to notice some of those allergy symptoms. At that point, you really want to make sure that you've had a mold inspector in there as well. Now, if we don't correct that source of that moisture, you got to stress to your clients, hey, you got to put your gutter downspouts or fix that roof once you get into this house, or else this mold's going to grow back soon. Okay. I can't tell you enough times on we put a beautiful inspection report together and people just don't understand that, we're going above and beyond taking all these photos and giving you really good descriptions. Now, Ryan, did Gina send you that mold assessment report? Are you able to pull that up again?
Sure did.
All right.
While I'm loading that up,
Yeah.
Let's say hypothetically, can you all see the report?
Yeah.
So let's say, you walk into a house, right? You can't find the source of mold. Let's say it's behind the walls or whatever, in a finished basement, right? You can't get to it. It's non-invasive. Are there any home remedies, like, let's say, an air purifier system or something that would help to cleanse the air and not necessarily kill the mold because you can't get to it or you don't know where it's coming from?
Yes. So there's tons of things that you can get out there as homeowners once you're established in the home. You can get air purifiers. You can put a better air filter on your furnace. But at the end of the day, those things are only going to be able to filter out so good until they themselves start to, be a little stinky. The best thing to do is get that climate control under control in the house. Correct, extend those gutter downspouts, fix the leaky roof, fix the deck flashing, anything that's going to allow moisture into that basement, get that corrected. And that's going to be the most permanent source. There's a very big misconception when it comes to bleach. Bleach does not kill mold. Bleach is water-based. Bleach will feed mold. It will eliminate the staining, but as soon as you reintroduce moisture to that, because bleach will keep things wet for a while, it will regrow. Okay. Bleach is not how to clean mold properly. Okay. There are other chemicals that you can purchase that are designed for mold removal. Bleach is a disinfectant. It is not a mold killer. Okay. It is not what professional mold remediation companies are even going to recommend or even talk about. Okay. So don't use the old, I'm going to bleach the foundation walls. Bleach is good if you really want to clean a surface up and prep it for paint, maybe on a foundation wall really quick, but it is really not the proper chemical to use. So stay away from that term bleach. That is not proper or the professional way to do things. Okay. Thanks, Ryan, for asking that. Now, what we're looking at right here. Okay. Is anybody falling asleep at all? Do we need to take a few minutes? Everybody good? Okay. Oop, Ryan dipped out for a second. All right, Ray, Chip, Craig, Kelly, you guys all good?
All good.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Just fixing a leaky pipe.
There
All
we
good.
go. Nice. Look at him go. You're getting ready for a home inspection, huh? All right.
Seriously. Yeah.
All right. So Ryan's got right now, he's got pulled up an example of what our mold assessment reports look like. Okay. Let's see here. How do I see Ryan? How do I get back to that screen share? Let's see here. There we go. All right. So this is what our mold assessment looks like. Now, Ryan, if you scroll down there, let's get right to where the report's going to begin. You're going to find that these reports are very, very detailed. Now, here's the standard mold assessment in the basement. This is that same house where we had found that the asbestos that was leaking The oil tank that had some leaks and some rust on it as well. This was Gina's inspection. Now, the first thing that we take a photo of is we try our best to get photos of the entryway to that basement or that contaminated area where the mold might be. One of the reasons why we do that is so when you forward this off to a mold remediation company, they're going to say, okay, we got a clear access with a nice stairwell there. We're going to be able to bring this equipment on the job or this equipment on the job. Okay. If I take a photo of an attic or a crawl space that it has a very small access, they might need to bring extra tools to be able to gain access into that area. Okay. You'll see here that we had said there's mold-like substances on the underflooring system in the basement and crawl space areas. And then right here, this is just a view of the basement access. Now, you'll notice that we said the word mold-like substance. Mold-like substance in New York State, we can't call it mold until we identify it in a lab as being mold. Okay. So what that means is all of these mold assessment reports, you're going to have mold-like substance, or you're going to hear the term growth quite often. Now, in New York State, we are not required at all to do any mold sampling to show you this is the species of mold. Because if we show you, okay, this is the species of mold, that's not going to tell us any different on how to treat, clean, or remove that. All mold's treated the same. Remember that. For certain clients, we would recommend sampling. For a good example, everybody take this tip down. If you're dealing with a listing agent and you have your buyers and your listing agents, kind of got that vibe from them that they want you to prove it. Prove there's a leak. Let me see a picture. Prove that the roof is bad. I want to see photos. Prove that there's mold. I want a mold sample. Some agents are like that. Some agents have their clients that are requesting those things. Maybe they work in the industry. Maybe they want you to prove that it's mold and it's not, cocoa powder from whatever they were doing. Now, mold samples, the only thing it's going to do is tell you the species of the mold. It doesn't tell you how to clean it up. So it's not necessarily recommended to do it at all. Now, if you have a client that's got some immune system issues, or we're trying to do a commercial property, or you want to find out they have allergies in the house, we're not quite sure why, well, then we talk about mold sampling, whether it's air sampling or tape lifts to find out what the issue actually is. Now, if we go right down into this report, you're going to see a view of the basement area. It's a clean, clear-cut photo of what that basement looks like. And this goes into that. This is a climate control report, not just a mold report. Okay, so we've got a no dehumidifier in this basement. So what we did, it's recommended to keep a dehumidifier operational to further regulate that climate. Dehumidifiers operate best if they're centrally located in each room or area and follow the manufacturer's recommendations for installing or using any dehumidifier. Dehumidifiers work best centrally located. Looks like I commented on that twice. That's okay. Let's see here. When a dehumidifier is located next to a sump pit, it will tend to pull that humidity or moisture from that pit and not the majority of the room. This will cause the dehumidifier to operate more than it should because it's cycling the sump pit's moisture. So consider adjusting that location or adding a dehumidifier to help better regulate that space. Clear cut. Now our client's going to understand, all right, I got to get a dehumidifier, but I'm not going to put that dehumidifier off to the corner like my parents and grandparents and how I grew up. I'm going to put this dehumidifier centrally located in this room so it can pull moisture evenly from all four sides to help better regulate that climate to prevent that mold. Okay. Education is going to be important on these mold assessment reports. Ryan, could you scroll down a little bit more? Let's find another section with a good narrative on it. Here we go. This is a perfect one. Asbestos. So right here, we had some asbestos pipe installation that it looks like it was contaminated with mold. We had it growing on top of that installation, more than likely from the leaks that were going on. Okay. So we're just going to let them know, hey, contaminated asbestos installations noted in this area. This might impede the mold remediation process, and it's highly recommended to talk to an asbestos contractor before remediation starts. Most of the time, these mold companies, they're environmental companies, okay? So they might deal with the buried oil tank. They might deal with the asbestos. They might deal with things like that. And if you can find a company that's got an all-in-one, they're going to be able to take care of this easier, and you're going to have to subcontract less contractors. Now, at the end of the day, we can clear certain areas when we come back for that re-inspection. So if somebody leaves contaminated asbestos, mold contaminated asbestos insulation in a basement, but they cleaned all the walls and the ceilings, that's fine. Maybe that company does not deal with mold. Maybe that wasn't something that they wanted to opt to do. We can clear everything, but we still going to let our clients know, hey, there's contaminated asbestos insulation in here. You know, this is the next step that you've got to take. Everything else looks great though. Okay. All right. Now, another little thing that I like to add in our reports so I can give people a good value, pipe insulation. Lack of insulation on all of the plumbing pipes can allow condensation to develop, further adding moisture to the area. It's recommended to add pipe insulation. Okay. It's not uncommon that we go through crawl spaces and all of our water supply lines are dripping all over the place. Sometimes they're hard to tell if it's an active plumbing leak or if it's just really high humidity. We can add pipe insulation. That's going to prevent mold from growing in the future. The mold assessment report is a very, very detailed report. It is one of the most important things for your clients to actually read over thoroughly. You as agents, find out if we can negotiate adding that pipe insulation or installing that dehumidifier. If you can, great. If you're not able to do that, just let your clients know, hey, this is what our minimum standard is going to be to remove the visible mold. It's going to be up to you guys moving forward as homeowners to help improve that climate as a whole. Okay. And we've got all of that in here. Ryan, you want to scroll down a little bit more? Thank you. Okay. Here's another spot. We had some active plumbing leaks noted at the time of the inspection, and that repairs were needed to prevent the leak from allowing unnecessary moisture to enter the area. Okay. Those asbestos pipes and some other plumbing lines were starting to leak there. Obviously, we don't want to add all of that moisture to a mold contaminated area. It's just going to keep that problem ongoing. Okay. Now, Ryan, I'll have you scroll all the way down to the bottom to explain what these bullet points are. So if we scroll up just a little bit more, right there, perfect. Now, our mold reports, they've got a lot of literature and language inside them. We're going to just touch base on what a mold remediation work plan should have. Okay. Now, when we have a home inspection report, we say, hey, you've got some active plumbing leaks. We recommend contacting a plumber to get this fixed. With a mold report, we're going to say, hey, this is our plumbing leak. You need to have it fixed because we don't want it to cause unnecessary humidity. So in a mold assessment, you might need to subcontract a plumber to do some of these fixes. You might have to touch base with that roofer or that chimney guy or general contractor. Not all mold remediation companies are going to be able to take care of what the problems are. In our report, we see basement outlined in bold letters. Okay. These are our steps that our mold remediation company is actually going to utilize so they can take care of that area and clean it up properly. Some of the things that we're looking for in our office, when we write the mold assessment report, we'll forward it over to our client, our agents, we'll forward it over to some mold remediation companies if they want us to. And the mold remediation company is going to provide a quote or a proposal with all of these bullet points below the basement. Now, those bullet points are our steps to complete the mold remediation. They're going to have things like, hey, it's recommended repair that active plumbing leak. Hey, you've got contaminated asbestos pipe installation. You might want to look into that further with an asbestos company. We want you to put covers over your sump pump pit so that humidity from the pit is not rising up into the basement. All of these steps in here are recommendations. Now, New York State's requirement is to get rid of the visible mold, not necessarily to correct all of the sources of what that mold could have done. Okay. So we're recommending, your general contractor for this and that. We want to find out if that mold remediation work plan is going to include all of those fixes that we recommended in our report. If it doesn't, just let our clients know. This is going to be up for you guys to remove it or find out if your mold company can, go above and beyond that minimum standard and start to get things corrected. Okay. Ryan, does that all make sense?
It sure does.
Perfect. Okay. Now, does anybody at all have any questions when it comes to the mold assessment or the mold remediation process?
So, I mean, not necessarily a question about it, but
Yeah.
in real time, in real life, how does it work, right? I'm on, I'm working with a buyer. We find mold in the house. What are the next steps, and how can we protect our buyers? Because I'm going to be honest with you, ever since Hurricane Sandy, some home inspectors, some people have found it to be a money grab, and they have a report readily available. Like, hey, listen, I think I see mold, and for an extra $29.99, I can write you a report right now. So how do we protect our people, and how do we also protect them financially and then health-wise?
I love how you phrase that question, protect those people. I'm all about that. But, protecting our clients is so important. Us as agents, when we move forward, you will find the more experience you get doing walk-alongs with your home inspectors, going to those mold inspection visits, going to the quotes, learning who the contractors are, you're going to know who's good and who to steer away from. Now, when it comes to mold, it's not always easy to negotiate all of these repairs. You also have to understand that a good mold report is going to have photos. If you guys get a mold assessment report that has no photos, that's 2 pages long with, hey, there's mold here, that's it, with no guidance as to what needs to be done, that is not an adequate mold report. That inspector, whomever they may be, is not looking out for your client's best interest. They are there to just, give you a report, 2-page report that they probably had pre-made, and they're sending it out. Nothing, you want to make sure that these mold reports are custom tuned to that house. That is why we typically charge for mold assessments outside the realm of a home inspection. Now, our company, we've been providing mold assessments with our home inspection completely free of charge, no questions asked. We only on occasion recommend that they do a mold sample, which we usually only charge cost. It's like $50 to $75, and all those samples are overnighted. We don't push that on a client, and we let everybody know it's only a recommendation. Here's why. Well, I've had experience with this listing agent in the past, or I know the attorney on the other end, and they have that mentality. Well, let's firm up this paperwork. We've got a mold assessment, but it says mold-like substance. Let's get mold samples to say it is what it is. That's a situation where I'd really want your clients to get better protected. Get a mold sample for the few dollars it costs. Well worth it. Now, when it comes to mold assessors and mold remediators, there is a very big money grab in this industry right now. Mold is very expensive to take care of, and it is very cheap to perform. Most mold remediations are going to, at cost, they're going to be $500 to $800, and they're going to be charging 4 times that. Okay, small basements might cost $500, and they're going to make 5 times their money, 6 times their money on it. It is very important to have a good mold inspector who's going to look out for these clients. There are inspectors out there that hold the mold remediation license to perform the work and the mold assessment license to do the assessments. You will also find that there might be that one inspector that you've been using that only refers that one company. You want to stay away from things like that. Get a good understanding of who's good in the industry. Widen your horizons. Find out who's going to be good, who's not so good, who's referring only one company. That's, red flag, as everybody's saying now on social media. Something to just stay in tune with. I would encourage everybody to also go for your mold clearance inspections to make sure all that mold is actually removed and taken care of. It is not uncommon for us to get mold paperwork from the remediators. We check it over and make sure that, they're hitting most of the main points and it's good shape. But when we go back, if that mold remediator said, we're going to vent 3 bathroom exhausts out the attic and we're going to fix the ridge vent. All right. Now myself and my other inspector is going to know we're going to go through this attic. We're looking for 3 bathroom vents to be vented to the outside because somebody paid for it. And we're going to make sure that this ridge vent is taken care of. If they didn't take care of that, somebody paid for that service because I've got their invoice, but that service was never performed. The mold and re-inspection is very, very important. I'd encourage everybody in this room to go to those just to make sure your clients, everybody's getting what they're paid for. We're only human. Mold remediation companies, they're only human also. Maybe they were in a rush that morning, had a bad morning, or forgot the bathroom vents in the office. Maybe they had full intention on installing those, but they just forgot it. Human error happens all the time, and that's the purpose of these mold clearance inspections. Now, when it comes time for home inspection, most home inspectors are going to include this mold assessment with their structural home inspection. Some of them aren't going to want anything to do with it because they're afraid of the liability, and they're going to want to charge an extra whatever it may be at the inspection. Personally, I don't believe in giving people surprise bills. It is not fair to them, agents, or their clients at all. It does not make sense to do that when I can take the photos, spend an extra 25 minutes in the office writing up a nice thorough report like this one that we have right here. And that's going to give them an extreme value, I like to call it. You'll also find that mold remediation contractors, they're only human also. They do make mistakes from time to time. It is not uncommon for us to have to send a company back to a job to do touch-ups to make sure it's done correctly. Okay. That is it, I believe, when it comes to mold. The cost of these things outside the realm of a home inspection, industry standards about, let's say, $300 or so. Okay. When it comes time for this clearance inspection, again, industry standard, that tends to range a little bit more. If we gave you a free mold assessment on our home inspection, we're going to charge $300 for that clearance. If we went out to your home and we did a mold assessment, just a mold assessment only, we will charge about $275 for that clearance. You are going to find people that are cheaper than my company. There are people out there that I won't compete with their pricing, but I can, tell myself right now that our mold reports are very, very thorough. They look out for our clients' health and what their intended use of the property is going to be. If they've got a family with a baby in there, we're probably going to go above and beyond to make sure that we put even more climate control recommendations in there so they can help protect their family and make sure that they're safe. Okay. That's very, very important to us. You will find home inspectors that do this service cheap. And I know, Ryan, you probably had a few inspections that were just too good to be true with the pricing, and they always come up with headaches at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the beginning, because you think you're doing a service to your clients by getting them the cheapest. I don't want to say inexpensive, because at the end of the day, they are the cheapest. There's a difference between those two words.
Yes.
And, sometimes you get what you pay for. Now, obviously, we should also be mindful that, they're not going to spend $3,000 on a report, but
yes.
Be mindful. A lot of it's trial and error. And then my other question too, about mold is, can a homeowner remedy their own mold? At what point can they? And then at what point does it become part of the bigger picture when the report is written and everything?
That's a great question, because I didn't touch on that. I've been using the term professional mold remediation company, professional inspection company. In New York State, a homeowner can do anything they want when it comes to repairing their own property. No problem. Homeowner is still going to be able to have access to those chemicals. We can buy all that stuff on the internet now. But one of the problems is when we do a inspection on it, we can only do a clearance inspection, a true clearance inspection for professional mold remediation companies only. So that means we can't go in after a mold remediation that was done by the homeowner and say, it's great, it adheres to New York State standards, it's taken care of properly, the source is corrected, it's good, talk to your remediator for warranties. You're not going to get any warranties with a homeowner. You're not even going to get them to pick up a phone call if you call them 6 months down the road. You probably won't even get a receipt for what chemicals that they used. Stay away from homeowners doing it unless it's something very, very small. We can, however, always go back and check homeowner work out, and you're going to get photos, but you're not going to get a true clearance inspection that's going to say, hey, it's adhering to all New York State standards, because it's not, because that homeowner is not a licensed mold remediation company. I advise people against hiring homeowners or having homeowners take care of their own mold remediation. It never works out the way you would hope it would. and it always costs 3 times more when the mold remediator needs to come in after and scrape all that paint off of everything, or use 5 times the amount of chemical they needed to fix the homeowner mistakes. There's a big difference in a mold remediation company spraying a disinfectant and a homeowner spraying bleach. We see it all the time. I went out and I disinfected everything. Great. But all of these floor joists still have mold in it. Yeah, but I disinfected it. Well, it's not going to pass because there's still visible mold. It's very, very hard for homeowners to complete mold remediations properly in their own home. And when they do it and get close to proper, it's always a question when it's going to grow back. It's not if, it's when. Okay. So during a real estate transaction, protect your clients as best as we can. Try to use pros only that are going to offer some type of warranty. Good question, Ryan. Thanks for reminding me about that one.
I have to take off. My dad is having emergency surgery tomorrow.
You do your thing. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It was nice. It was definitely nice to meet you. I'll get your email at the end and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Good luck to your pops.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we've talked about the home inspection. We've talked about mold. Just to kind of reiterate for everybody in here, these brochures, we have tangible, paper brochures. All this stuff we can send out to you if you want hard copies of it. I can drop some off at your office, and you can get these. Keep in mind, all of this stuff that we've got here, strictly educational. It's not going to sell your client us as an inspection company. I'm more so on education and selling myself as a company. Okay. So understand that. Reach out, grab these brochures, pass them out to your clients if you need to. All right. Let's talk about radon. Okay. Are we all done with mold? Is everybody okay? Everybody understands that whole process? Okay, great. Ryan, when it comes to radon, I've also got in that information tab a brochure for radon. And I believe Gina had sent an email to you with some radon results as well. Now, when it comes to radon, has anybody just chime in, interrupt, okay, and let me know, has anybody had an experience with radon before? Whether you or a family member have a system installed or you kind of have an idea of what it is, let's hear what your thoughts are. Okay.
I have never came into any type of radon.
No? Okay. It's common, believe it or not. I think this summer it's been a pretty bad season when it comes to radon. I explain radon the same exact way to all of my clients. What I say is radon, it's a gas, okay? Comes from uranium. Uranium is everywhere in the earth. It's just a matter of how much we got where the house is built. So every single house, even the one you're sitting in right now, has radon. How much? We have no idea until we actually test for it. Now, in New York State and the EPA, they regulate radon. Now, the magic number to stay away from when it comes to radon results is going to be a 4.0. Anything a 4.0 or higher, we're required to get that system installed and the house fixed. Radon is not something to stress about. It is very simple to correct. I very rarely have any clients get overwhelmed when they come back with radon because we explain things simply to them, okay? It's going to cost anywhere from $800 to a little over $2,000 now, especially with costs of all the PVC plumbing that's gone up. You can expect a 20% higher cost when it comes to radon systems this year versus in years past. All right. So it's not uncommon to just barely touch that $2,000 threshold when it comes to radon. Radon's one of those pass or fail items. Okay. If we have it, get it fixed. All right. It does not make sense to negotiate giving a credit to that client if they don't intend on getting that house fixed. What happens is people take that money and they go buy a nice flat screen with it. 2 years later, they're pissed off at themselves and everybody around them because they never got it fixed. So it's something, get it fixed while you're protected under your real estate attorney, yourselves as agents, the home inspector, while he can still do those re-inspections and retesting as well. Okay. Now, Ryan, if you can click on that page 2 right below there. On the left hand, left of that screen.
Yeah, I clicked it on my side. I don't know if
Perfect. There you go. Now it popped up. Cool. So what is radon? When natural uranium inside the earth decays, it eventually produces radon, which is a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas that seeps through the rock in the soil and in the ground. Radon is found virtually anywhere in different concentrations because most rocks contain trace amounts of uranium. Radon began to be recognized as a problem in the 70s and 80s, and the government put considerable resources in its research and awareness. Okay. Radon is estimated for it to be responsible for about 20,000 deaths in the United States each year. The EPA actually states that radon is the second lead of lung cancer behind smoking. As smoking is slowly becoming a thing of the past, more people are, radon is slowly creeping up to that first place spot, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to radon, it's another one of those ancillary services that your home inspector should be offering. Every inspector tests radon differently. There are regulations, but regulations are not enforced. So it is the Wild West when it comes to radon testing, okay? Should we test for radon? Any home has the potential for hazardous levels of radon. The EPA and the Surgeon General recommend testing all homes, even if your neighbor's house tests low or high. Test your house. Your neighbor's house is not a good indicator that you have or do not have radon at all. Okay. Now, when it comes to radon, there is a map on here that shows you where the hot spots are for radon. All of New York State is a hot spot for radon. Okay. I've tested radon to come back high in just about every single town throughout my years. It is something that you're not going to know you have it unless you test for it. And do not take old or recent radon testing results as accurate. Radon changes every single day and every single hour. So it's not common to test it last week or in another transaction with another home inspector. Maybe that deal fell through. Maybe they're providing you the radon results. Maybe you're happy with them. Don't be happy with them. They are not accurate to what is going on today. Radon changes with the temperature, the humidity. When the ground is saturated, it's frozen. We've got closed house conditions. Do people open up windows and doors? Do they have their HVAC running or not running? Do they have parties in the house? There are so many different variables. Opt to have the radon test done. That is the number one service to not opt out of. That and the pest inspection, okay? When it comes to radon, what we would use is what's called a charcoal canister, okay? Now, when it comes to radon, most home inspectors, they're going to pull out a kit that looks similar to this, okay? We're going to open this kit up, and we're going to have 2 canisters in here that look like this. This is a professional grade radon test kit. Now, what we do with this is we tear this off. This has grate on it with charcoal inside of it. And what that charcoal is going to do is that's going to sit there and absorb all of the radon. We're going to then pick up this within a couple of days, and we're going to ship these radon results out. These devices right here are time sensitive. These are only good for a maximum of 10 days. That includes shipping times. So when a home inspector drops this off, it is very important that they're going to contact you to go ship it out. Gina actually had a really good example of a home inspector that used these incorrectly. When it comes to any radon testing kit at all, there's certain places on where you test those. So ask your home inspector, hey, I see that you're setting up that radon area in the stairwell or in the utility area or in the center of the basement. Why do you test it there? I don't know. I'm new. I just like to know. Some inspectors might not be able to give you a clear-cut answer as to why. Some inspectors are going to give you a very logical answer. So that's kind of your way of being able to interview to know if these guys are pros or if they just bought one of these test kits online and started a radon business. You don't need to be licensed to obtain these kits at all. They're very cheap. This professional grade kits, I think they charge about $25, and that includes all the shipping with it. So they are cheap to use and anybody can purchase them. So just because your home inspector is offering radon testing does not mean that they know what they are doing. When it comes to where to perform these tests, we keep these things out of utility areas. We keep them out of sump pump areas, out of hallways, stairwells, no less than 18 inches above the ground. We've got to also keep them at least 3 feet away from the walls if we're able to do that. We do not put them in bathrooms or on top of washer machines and dryers, okay? One of the reasons why we don't put them in those locations, because we have drafts in there. So if your hot water tank kicks on in a utility room, that has a flue pipe. That's gonna take air from your basement and send it outside. That's washing the air. Now, we don't feel these drafts as people because we'd have to have a fan on us to feel a draft. But what happens is it changes the airflow inside the house and it dramatically affects how accurate these things are going to be. Whenever radon test kits are placed improperly, the radon results are actually going to be lower. They are never going to be higher, okay? So it's important to know, ask your questions with your home inspector. Find out if you feel comfortable with how they are doing that test, okay? Now, there's other things that we utilize outside of these test kits, and we're going to use electronic monitors. Now, inside New York State, technically, you're supposed to be licensed to operate that type of equipment. At the end of the day, everybody's just pressing a button, but it is important to note, minimum of 48 hours, any radon test kit needs to stay in a house, okay, to make sure that it's there for the appropriate amount of time is very, very important. There are a lot of cheap Chinese novelty crap out there that people can go buy on Amazon or some of the big box stores. Understand, if this is a medical testing device that you are purchasing or obtaining, you want to make sure the individual that you're having perform that test knows what the heck they're doing. I've seen in recent years, Ryan has too, I'm sure, there are home inspectors that claim to have this device that will automatically tell you what your radon results are at the home inspection. That is a lie. Not factual information. You can't get live time radon results at all. It's only going to give you a ballpark. And number one, when it comes to radon testing, that equipment that they use, it's going to take about 4 hours for that equipment to kind of get acclimatized to that basement. Meaning you're bringing that from outside air from your truck or whatever to outside the house into the basement. It's got fresh air around it now. It's going to take 4 hours for that fresh air to really get back to normal levels. So when we use electronic radon equipment, it's important to ask your inspector, hey, why are you testing it here? If an inspector ever says, yeah, they pull out a device and they say, yeah, your radon's good, it's a 1.0. And you don't get a radon report, red flag, don't hire that guy. That is a big problem in the radon industry. The guys like that are probably charging $50 for a radon test, okay? The guys that have professional grade equipment and that are truly pros and know what they're doing, they're gonna charge $150, $175 or so for a radon test kit, okay? And you can ensure that that's done properly. Now, does anyone have any questions when it comes to radon itself at a home inspection?
Where should you be looking for the inspector to be placing those per se, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to any radon testing device, you keep it away from any areas that's going to keep drafts. Centrally located in a room is ideal. When they set up any radon testing device, it's going to be in the lowest portion of the home that has the potential to be finished and lived in. This means if you go into a basement and it's a dirt floor or a crawl space, or that basement is accessed from a Bilco door on the outside of the house, that is not a place you should see a radon test kit. Red flag. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. You want to go into that finished basement, that finished portion, and you want to see it several feet away from the walls. You want to see it a couple of feet above the ground. You don't want to see it on a shelf in a storage area in a utility room. That is not proper, okay? It's pretty self-explanatory where those test kits need to be if they have any level of training at all with it. My advice to you is just talk to your inspectors, find out why. Any of the electronic or the on-demand radon kits, minimum 48 hours, and they need to be calibrated once a year. So if somebody's sending you a radon report and it's kind of like, hey, this is your radon result, or it's on a company letterhead and they're saying it's 4.0 or 2.3, red flag. That's not an EPA rated report. All radon reports are reports that are standardized from the EPA. So in our software, Ryan, were you able to get that? There you go. So this is an electronic radon report here. Okay, we have two averages. We have an overall average and we have an EPA average. The EPA always rounds up for the most part when it comes to radon results, because EPA is just they're trying to protect people a little bit more. All right. This format is not my format. This was designed by the radon manufacturer that I use my electronic monitors with. I can't edit anything of this. So if I spell somebody's name incorrectly, I have to go back and do whiteout or a sticky tape and respell things that way because they're uneditable. Now, if Ryan scrolls down just a little bit more, okay. All right, we've got our radon chart right there. Now, when it comes to the radon, again, remember how I said radon changes every single day, every single hour with the climate, doors, windows, heating systems, all that is going to change it. So it is not uncommon to see this line graph that we're all looking at right now, okay? The radon test kit, the first 4 hours of those tests, the results there, those are actually omitted from the overall average of the radon, okay? Just because that machine knows it's climatizing to that area. And as you can see, if somebody was to walk into a home and do 1 hour of walking around with some fancy radon device that they bought on Amazon or eBay, you're not going to get all the results that you have here. This is 48 hours of radon tests. You can see at that first 24 hours, the radon was low and it slowly got higher and higher. And then it dropped down really low again, and then it started tapering off. It changes dramatically. When we look at these professional grade reports, we can also tell if somebody tampered with it. So if you notice on that line, we have a red dot on the top left of that radon graph, okay? That red dot tells me there was some type of movement at the beginning of the test. Maybe somebody bumped into it. Maybe we decided we found a better area to test for it while we were at the home inspection. We physically picked up that machine and brought it to another location, okay? We look for those red dots throughout our report to make sure the homeowners aren't picking it up and, moving it outside or something. Now, when you scroll down past this, it's going to show you what your radon results were every single hour for those 48 hours. It's also going to tell us that, hey, the window AC was closed down. All of our heating vents in the area that we tested for radon, those were closed down. We kept it away from utility areas. We closed doors. It was in a proper location, okay? That is a proper radon test. I have seen many times, many other inspectors will put on their company letterhead, your radon results were sent on this day and your results are this, and they're good. Well, we don't have any background information whether it was tested properly or improperly. That's the difference between the reports and the other ones. Now, that's when it comes to radon, guys. Radon's pretty simple. It's really pass-fail. It's one of those simple negotiation things for the most part. Don't contest radon results. If it comes back high, it is what it is. It's one of those things to where you understand what the costs are and find out what you can do for your clients. Does anybody have any questions related to radon? No? Okay. Now, we are all set for the day, okay? You guys learned quite a lot. There's a lot of information that we just shared. Feel free to reach out. Ryan's got all of our contact information. It's all right on our website. I apologize that he just did not have Wi-Fi at our office this morning. If you have questions, just reach out. It is not uncommon for agents to be on an inspection or at a showing and they're not quite sure what the heck they're looking at. You can always text us a photo of what you're looking at and ask if it's a problem to any one of our numbers. They're all mobile numbers. We're very, very responsive, very, very easy to get a hold of. If you text us, you're getting an answer almost instantly, okay? So reach out. If anybody wants physical copies of these brochures, we can make that happen, okay? Other than that, does anybody have any questions with what we went over today?
Yeah, I've just got a quick question. It may be kind of silly, but how does an inspection work for new construction? Is it like the same process?
Yeah, same exact process. You want to look over everything, especially radon testing. Pest, like insect inspections, aren't really too important on a new construction, but the structural inspection is definitely one of the most common things we find is going to be active plumbing leaks, or things that might not be done quite right. Flip homes, if a house is fully renovated, like brand new, like a flipper went through and gutted it and redid it all, very important to look at that stuff. Radon testing, never opt out of it, especially on new construction. A lot of builders like to contest those radon results. Builders can be kind of tough to deal with, still have that radon test done. When it comes time for all those extra ancillary services on new construction, builders are typically going to give a structural warranty for at least a year. Just remind your clients or reach out to them once they get to that 8-month mark, 10-month mark. Hey, your warranty's coming up soon. Get another structural done just to make sure everything's kind of settling into its shoes the way it should be. It's well worth it for the few $100s it is. Okay, good question.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I've used Ryan in a number of inspections. He's absolutely fantastic, and that's why we have him facilitate this class. At the end of the day, he's.
I'm starting to lose you.
Showing that, hey, the foundation concern us, and the answer could be yes or no. So
Yeah,
thanks, Ryan. And then reach out to Ryan, and then we will be back at 12:30 for commercial real estate with Richard Farrow. It'll be a fun, enjoyable class. Richard's awesome. He's been in the commercial world for a number of years now, so you're definitely going to learn a lot. So I will share Ryan Bergami's info with everybody, and I'll chat with you all soon. See you at 12:30. Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Bye, guys.